Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, dear participants. It's 4:30 in Geneva. Welcome to the penultimate day of this pre-COP6 online events week. This event is measuring the effectiveness of the Minamata Convention through legal indicators, organized by CIDCE. Before we move on to the main event, let me quickly walk you through the housekeeping notes. We invite you pose your questions or type comments onto the chat panel and send to everyone so that everyone can see your questions and comments. And when the moderator opens the floor, kindly raise your hand by clicking the raise hand icon that appears at the bottom of your screen, also next to your name appearing on the participants panel. You can, the moderator will call your name and we will request you to unmute. Please accept this request and lower your speak. And if you need any technical assistance, kindly let us know through the chat box and send to the host. And after the event is over, kindly fill out this survey. A piece of disclaimer that the views expressed by the speakers, moderators, and participants during this pre-COP6 online event are those of the individuals concerned and do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of the Secretariat of the Minamata Convention on Mercury. So with that, without further ado, I pass it over to Laurent. Over to you, Laurent. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And we are very happy to welcome you to this side event on measuring the effectivity of the Minamata Convention through legal indicators. I am in Montpellier with my students in the Faculty of Law, and I'm doctor in law, and I'm member of CIDCE. With me in this conference, I have the pleasure to present Lara Ogniben, legal officer at the Secretary of the Minamata Convention of Mercury. Lara is member of the Secretariat of the Convention. She provides overall legal advice and guidance with respect to the implementation of the program of work of the Convention and the meeting of the conference of the party. She also coordinates the work of the Secretariat around the specific issue, namely mercury, supply source and trade, national reporting, international cooperation, and supporting the work of the Implementation and Compliance Committee. Before joining the Secretariat, Lara worked for 10 years as legal and program officer in the law division in Nairobi. Thank you, Lara, for your participation. And we also have with us Elisa Scotti, full professor of administrative law at the University of Macerata, Law, and director of the master's program in administrative science and innovation in public administration. Since 2022, they coordinate the National Commission for Environmental Impact Assessment at the Ministry of Environmental Energy in Italy. And Elisa is founding member of Global Pandemic Network and member of the GPN steering committee. So thank you, Lara, for your participation. Now I will give the floor to Lara for a presentation about overview of the enabling context of the Minamata Convention on mercury. Lara, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Laurent. I hope you can all hear me. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Lara Nievene, as mentioned earlier, and I'm the legal officer with the Secretariat of the Minamata Convention. I'm based in Geneva. And I will take you through a short introduction on what is the enabling context under the Minamata Convention on mercury. So let's move to the next slide. There you go. So the Minamata Convention is has an objective to control the whole life cycle of mercury. The objective of the convention is to limit emissions and the releases of mercury in the environment and to protect human health and the environment from such emissions and releases. And it controls, aims to control the whole life cycle of mercury from from mining to when, for example, to when mercury becomes waste. So controlling the anthropogenic emissions and releases of mercury throughout its life cycle has been a key factor in shaping all the operations under the convention. And these include a ban on new mercury mines and the phase out of existing mines. This is provided in Article 3 of the Convention on the Supply, Sources and Trade. Then the convention also provides for the phase out and phase down of mercury use in a number of mercury added products and processes under Articles 4 and 5 of the convention. The convention also provides for control measures on emissions to air and releases to land and water in Articles 8 and 9. And it also regulates the informal sector of artisanal and small-scale gold mining, also called ASGM, in Article 7. And then the convention also addresses the interim storage of mercury and its disposal once it becomes waste. And also it regulates the sites contaminated by mercury as well as other health issues. So the convention really follows the whole life cycle of mercury from the moment is mined to the moment it becomes waste. And this is a specific feature of our convention. Now, here again, I have an overview on the left, and on the left side of the slide, you see a list of control measures, which I already enumerated, which are aimed at reducing the mercury, the release and emission of mercury into the environment. And then our convention also provides for a number of provisions that are part of what we call an enabling context. So there are institutions and provisions that are aimed at supporting parties in meeting complying with their control measures that are established under the convention. So this enabling environment includes the establishment of a financial mechanism, for example, under Article 13, the establishment of an implementation and compliance committee under Article 15, the provision for an effectiveness evaluation process that has to be undertaken by the COP under Article 22, and also the establishment of key institutions like, for example, the Conference of the Parties and the Secretariat. They are meant to support parties in implementing the convention. So I'll take you through these provisions to see a bit more in detail how these are provided for in the convention. So let's start with the Conference of the Parties. As you know, we will have very soon our 6th meeting of the Conference of the Parties here in Geneva from 3rd to 7th of November. The COP is the governing body of the convention and is established under Article 23, the convention. And through the decision taken at its meeting, the COP keeps under continuous review and evaluation the implementation of the convention. Since the entry into force of the convention in 2017, the COP met 5 times. And it is supported in its work by a bureau, which consists of 1 president. You see here the picture of our current COP6 president from Chile, and 9 vice presidents. So 2 members of the bureau for each UN region. Now, the Conference of the Party keeps under continuous review and evaluation the implementation of the convention, and also performs functions assigned to it under Article 23. This includes establishing subsidiary bodies, like, for example, the Implementation Compliance Committee, which was established by the COP, but also it is tasked to cooperate with competent international organizations and the intergovernmental and non-governmental bodies, as we have a number of parties that also support the COP in its work. It regularly reviews all information made available by parties in their national reports that are submitted under Article 21 of the Convention. It considers recommendations from advisory bodies and like the Implementation Compliance Committee, and also considers and undertakes any additional action, and reviews Annexes A and B to the Convention. In addition to these tasks, the Convention also identifies additional functions under other articles. For example, the COP is to decide on specific obligations, for example, on extending exemptions that have been registered by parties on certain products and processes listed in Annex A and B. It can adopt guidance on specific obligations. It can guide the Convention's financial mechanism, which I'll come to it a bit in a few slides. And also it has to evaluate the effectiveness of the convention, and this process is currently ongoing. And maybe you'll hear more about it later. And also it can adopt amendments to the convention. And it can review the convention provisions and implementation on several articles. Now, another institution that has been established by the COP is the Implementation Compliance Committee, which is a subsidiary body of the COP, which has the task to promote implementation and review compliance with all provisions of the convention. And it is to support parties in implementing compliance, in complying with the convention. It has a very facilitative role in this respect. The committee can examine both individual and systemic issues of implementation and compliance, and can make recommendations to the COP as appropriate. It has 15 members nominated by parties, and it is elected, and which are elected by the COP, and it has its own rules of procedure. So here you can find more information on the Implementation Compliance Committee on our convention's website, and you have the link here in the slide. Now, the convention in Article 13 also defines a mechanism for provision of adequate, predictable, and timely financial resources that is to support the implementation of the convention. And our financial mechanism is divided in 2 parts. One is through the Global Environment Facility, the GEF. And you can see here on the slide a number of agreements and documents, including an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding between our COP and the GEF on how this part of our financial mechanism is to be run. And then we have another part of the financial mechanism that is the specific international program, which is a grant-giving mechanism that is managed by the Secretariat, that provides to parties who can share project proposals, funding to support their capacity in implementing the convention. Here it is, a picture of our CIP governing board. The board manages the specific international program and meets regularly and approves projects submitted by parties, and then allows the Secretariat to disperse funds to fund these successful projects. You can find more information on the CIP on our website, and you have the links here on the slide. Now, regarding effectiveness evaluation, as indicated in Article 22, the COP is to evaluate the effectiveness of the convention beginning no later than 6 years after the convention's entry into force and periodically thereafter. So in a decision of the COP at its fourth meeting, the COP agreed to begin the first effectiveness evaluation of the convention and adopted a framework for the effectiveness evaluation. And further, in the same decision, the COP established the open-ended scientific group to provide the COP with scientific data. Later on, at COP5, the COP established the effectiveness evaluation group to be responsible for and oversee the development of the effectiveness evaluation report. This group will integrate the information and knowledge collected and synthesized during the effectiveness evaluation process into a final report that is to be considered a COP7 in 2027. And here is my last slide. This is another way to enhance the effectiveness of our convention through international cooperation coordination with relevant bodies. And this is to allow the convention to be more efficient and be coherent. And also this allows us to build channels of communication with other partners to share experiences and approaches. International cooperation and multilateralism were reinforced also during the COP5. We have regularly an agenda item on this matter, and recognizing how the convention and its secretariat works with other entities in strengthening the implementation and effectiveness of the convention. Here you have a list of some of our parties. Some are named in the text of the convention, like the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm conventions, but also the World Health Organization, the International Labour Organization, the Convention on Biological Diversity, the UN Environment Programme, and other entities that really can amplify the work and the results of the work of the convention. I'll stop here, and of course I remain available in case you have any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lara. We take the question after the three presentations. And now I give the floor to Elisa for a presentation about One Health strategy for Minamata Convention implementation.
Thank you for the kind invitation. It's an honor to be here, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all. Before starting, I'll wait for my slide, or do we have to share my presentation?
Hi, Elisa. I'll share it in a moment.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So we can start with the first slides, and the objective of my presentation is to establish a link between the implementation of the One Health strategy and the Minamata Convention. First, the common points between One Health and the Minamata Convention will be examined in terms of objectives, principles, and implementation methods, including indicators. Secondly, the documents from which this mutual interaction emerges at the policy level will be identified. And then some case law examples showing this close integration will be presented. Finally, the benefits and practical outcomes deriving from the inclusion of the Minamata Convention within the One Health strategy framework will be outlined. So let's get started with the One Health strategy. What is One Health? Is now after COVID-19 is a well-known strategy. I use the definition from the One Health high-level panel, expert panel 2021. They defined the One Health strategy as an integrated interdisciplinary approach aiming to balance and optimize the health of people, animals, and ecosystems. It acknowledges that human, animal, plants, and environmental health are interconnected and interdependent. Collaboration between fields such as medicine, veterinary science, environmental science, and public health is essential to address health threats like emerging infectious diseases, antimicrobial resistance, and food and water safety risks. By promoting cooperation across sectors, One Health tried to reach its goals to protect the health of the planet, of people, and of animals. So let's compare this approach, this definition with Minamata Convention. And we have heard from Lara the meaning of Minamata Convention. The purpose is to safeguard, next slide, please. Perfect, thank you. And so the Minamata Convention purpose, we have heard, is to safeguard the human health and environment from the detrimental effects of mercury and mercury compounds. So it encompasses to control the reduction of mercury use across all stages. And we can say, I'm not going to repeat what we can heard, but let's compare what is said about One Health and what Lara said about the Minamata Convention, and we can see that both initiatives reflect a holistic preventative mindset for public health and environmental sustainability. So the approach is similar, and the One Health approach is able to support the implementation of Minamata Convention. In fact, the One Health approach supports monitoring and the action of chemicals by mercury by linking human, animal, and ecosystem health. On the other hand, the Minamata Convention is an example of a coordinated international action that addresses such risks at their source. Although Minamata Convention is not explicitly framed as a One Health strategy, we can see that it reflects the core One Health principle and concept. Let's see. In fact, I listed here some documents, some international document from different conventions. So I listed here biodiversity, and I listed here climate change and gain biodiversity. And all this document call for a link between different strategies and with Minamata Convention. And that is because the health is only one. So biodiversity and ecosystem are interconnected with the human health, but also with animal health. And next slide, please. So these documents highlight that the multi-sectoral approach is needed, and it is at the core of the One Health framework, and also it is an approach needed by for the implementation of Minamata Convention. And One Health encourages cooperation among public health, environmental and agricultural authorities. And also the legal framework inspired by One Health means coordination between national policies. And so next slide, please. And so we can find these principles, these One Health principles in Minamata Convention. We can find it in the health-related articles and in articles requiring cross-sectoral coordination. We have for example, Article 16 on health aspects, which call for parties to promote strategies to identify population at risk, improve access to health care, raise awareness among health professionals, and strengthen prevention and treatment. But we can find, for example, an article requiring cross-sectoral coordination. For example, Article 17 asks for information exchange, requiring parties to exchange information on mercury health effects and best practices. Next slide, please. Okay, next slide, sorry. Okay, so in both One Health and Minamata, we can find this multi-sectoral approach recommended by international organizations. I listed here again the strategy for implementation by WHO, UNITAR, UNEP, but also scientific literature frequently analyze the convention through a One Health lens. But WHO, UNITAR and UNEP don't explicitly mention the One Health in connection with the Minamata Convention, but the approach is similar. But if it's really important, the recent document from EPA, the United States Environmental Protection Agency, it is a document titled One Health Approach to Regulating and Monitoring Mercury. So the link here is explicit. So it's really important to link especially for implementation, link Minamata Convention with this holistic approach, the One Health approach. And next slide, please. It means strengthening legal and institutional integration. So it means structuring governance to ensure cooperation among ministries of health, environment, agriculture, and industry, using laws including control and also indicators. And it means also embedding compliance mechanism, accountability frameworks, public reporting, overcoming everywhere the legal fragmentation, the fragmentation of our public administration that we can find frequently in environmental and health law. So it is important to overcome this chronic obstacle to different policies, but especially in the field of environment and health law. We have to have a joint vision about goal, but also means of implementation. Next slide, please. And okay, also indicators and the role of data are fundamental. So it is important to rethink tools, and so it's important to create harmonized indicators with a common view and with a common strategy. It could be a tool to link in law and operational practice and policy review, and it is also a way for a transparent assessment of exposure, compliance, and policy effectiveness. Next slide, please. And okay, benefit and practical outcomes. It's clear that if we are able to combine these strategies, we can enhance the ability to detect, to respond, to prevent also mercury-related risks and emergencies disease. Let's think, for example, at animals, which is a link between nature and human health, and the food chain is a central examples. And we can find, next slide, please, a concrete examples of this connection in rights, in justice. We have some case law. I listed here some of that. A case law that recognize this connection, this link between the duty of Minamata Convention and human rights, public health, but also the health of our planet. Among others, is really significant. The Constitutional Court ruling in Colombia is a recent ruling of 2025, so this year. And the court found in favor of 30 indigenous communities in the Amazon affected by mercury contamination from gold mining. The court recognized the One Health connection because it recognized that mercury pollution threatened not only the human health, but also food security, water safety, biodiversity, and ancestral knowledge systems. And it means aligning this with the One Health lens. So the outcome of this ruling ordered the suspension of new mining licenses, mandated remediation plans, required regular environmental and health monitoring, and specified intercultural dialogue and indigenous participation. Ministries were given clear responsibilities across sectors, and the annual hearings were mandated for inclusive oversight. I think that it is a really significant example here. You can find also another recent ruling from Osaka District Court. And okay, I think the time is over, so I will only mention, but is another step of the Minamata saga that recognize also the rights of people damaged by the famous disaster in Minamata in Japan. So let's start slide, please, so we can move to the conclusion, highlighting that from a legal perspective, the One Health strategy is able to provide the necessary framework and operational basis to transform the Minamata Convention from a sectoral treaty into integrating forced regime also in justice, also in case law. It supports stronger legislation, coordinated administrative action, and effective risk governance, ensuring the protection of human, animal, and ecosystem health from the dangers of mercury. So thank you for your attention, and again for the kind invitation.
Thank you, Elisa, for your presentation. And I present now. So in my introduction, I don't want to repeat what say Lara and Elisa about the Minamata Convention.
Dear Laurent, the
yes.
slides are not projected perfectly.
Not?
We can see the projected slide we cannot see. So if you want, I can project it for
Yes.
you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. And so I say I don't want to repeat what Lara and Elisa said about the Minamata Convention. I want to say that what is the objective of Minamata Convention? Objective of Minamata Convention is to protect health and the environment from the harmful effect of mercury. And what is the meaning? The meaning is to create obligation for the party, you know. And if you create obligation, you must measuring how this obligation is implemented in the state. And so it's the objective of the legal indicator. You can change the slide, please. And how can the effectivity of is a objective? How can the object of the effectivity of implementation of the law established by the Minamata Convention be measured? And I want you can make next slide, please. I want to clarify the difference between effectivity and effectiveness for legal indicator. The effectivity refer to the measurement of the actual application of the law. That is the transition from text to practice. And you know, the law said, and what is the practice in concrete. In other words, measuring legal effectivity consists of assessing its performativity, you know. Effectiveness, on the other hand, evaluate the concrete outcome on human health and the environmental of a public policy. For example, a policy implemented through a legal instrument, such as an international convention like the Minamata Convention. This convention is, in fact, the result of an international political will to protect health and the environment. In this context of the Minamata Convention, those two dimensions are obviously liked, but assessing effectivity is the indispensable first step to determine whether states have properly transposed and implemented the international commitments into national law. What the convention itself provides regarding evaluation, next slide please. It should be noted that the Minamata Convention already includes provision related to evaluation. Also, they remain mainly technical and scientific. Lara speak about that. For example, Article 21 provides that each party must regularly submit a national report to the Secretary on the measures taken to implement the Convention. These reports cover the policy adopted, available data on emission and release, as well as the difficulties encountered. However, no common methodology is imposed, and the legal scope of these reports remain limited. They describe action without measuring their effectiveness. Article 22, for its part, established an evaluation of the convention effectiveness by the conference of the party based on scientific data, reports, and environmental monitoring. This approach, entrusted to the effectiveness evaluation group, aims to measure mercury concentration in air, water, soil, fish, or population. But it does not take into account the legal implementation of the Convention's obligations, such as the transposition of role, control, sanction, jurisprudence, and other elements of the state's domestic law. In other words, the Convention evaluated its environmental effectiveness, but not its legal effectivity. It is this gap the legal indicators can fill, adding to scientific monitoring, a follow-up, and the actual application of the law. A lack of legal indicator. Next step. Next slide, please. Of course, the Minamata Convention is not the only one to suffer from the absence of legal indicator. Most reports on the state of the environment really on technical, economic, or health indicator, but not legal indicator. However, there are virtually no legal indicator to measure the effective implementation of international convention. This gap has a direct consequence. The role of law remains invisible. Yet, without visibility, the law is often perceived as ineffective or even secondary in environmental policy. It's therefore, you can, next slide, please. It therefore seems important to create such indicators. They offer several decisive advantages. They address the frequent criticism of ineffectivity often leveled at environmental law. They inform decision makers and the public about the reality of the legal implementation. They allow objective measuring of progress or regression. Finally, they strengthen transparency, governance, and trust in the international process. So they make the law visible and measurable. Next slide, please. To operationalize the measuring of legal effectivity, my friend, Professor Prier, has identified 6 families of legal indicators which allow evaluation of the entire process of implementation of environmental role. The category applicable to the Minamata Convention reflects the successive stage of the life in the life of the norm. For first family is existential indicators. Check the existence of a national legal framework compliant with the convention. Example, the presence of a national law banning artisanal mercury extraction or regulating its trade. Secondly, applicability indicator measures the validity and concrete implementation of rule, publication, and try into force implementing text. Example, the existence of a degree setting mercury emission, the rule of authorization procedure. Third, institutional indicator assess the existence and capacity of the institution responsible for enforcing the rule, control authority, human and financial resource. Example, a national agency for controlling mercury containing products with inspectors and a definite budget. For substantive indicator, evaluated the material content of the norm and the consistency with the objective of the convention. Example, integration of the precautionary principle or progressive mercury substitution into national regulation. 5, procedural and citizen judicial control indicator. Measure public participation, access to the information and justice, and effective judicial oversight. Examples, the number of legal cases concerning mercury violation, existence of a citizen complaint mechanism. And 6, non-legal indicators, complementary factors influencing law implementation. Example, the level of awareness amount, population exposed to mercury, and cooperation between health and environmental authority. These 6 categories form an universal reference framework for any assessment of environmental law effectivity. The next slide, please. How to build legal indicator. After discussing the category of legal indicator, we can now build the indicators themselves. The methodology developed by Michel Perrier and Christophe Bassen propose a simple step-by-step approach. Define the evaluation domain, for example, artisanal, on small scale, goal meaning, identify effectivity criteria, existence of a national role, transform these criteria into simple verifiable question, integrate the questionnaire into the national report, or submit them to independent evaluation by NGO and expert, for example. This method allows quantify the application of the law without reducing into the purely formal approach. Next slide, please. And after so with this slide, it exposes what I said. And the next slide, please. My conclusion, it is therefore clear that legal indicators are an indispensable complement for measuring the effectivity of environmental law. Legal indicators are the key condition for legitimacy of international environmental law. They make progress and gaps visible, complementing technical indicator by showing whether the law actually works. Without legal indicator, we cannot measure the state of the law. At the 5th Montevideo program meeting in June 2024 on promoting and developing the role of law, legal indicators were presented and integrated into the future work. So the Minamata Convention, by virtue of its binding nature, could be a fantastic laboratory for experimenting with legal indicators. That would constitute an essential compass to transform the Minamata Convention into tangible reality, serving human health and the planet. Thank you for your attention. And it's a book in French and in English. You can you can telecharge this book on the site of CIDCE. So if any question, we can
Dear Lauren, there are a number of questions in the chat. If you could kindly go through. For example, the first question is, how do Minamata Convention bodies address the mining and processing of uranium and handling of related products to end the emissions of mercury into the environment? Will you take this question?
perhaps I have a question for Lara. What Lara think about legal indicators?
Oh, thank you for the question. And I'm not sure if I should also address the first question on uranium. I'm not aware. Uranium is not a substance that is managed or mentioned in the convention, so I wouldn't. Maybe I'm missing something from that question, but concerning legal indicators, it is an interesting topic, and as you know, there is a number of the indicators that are being developed under the effectiveness evaluation process that it's ongoing, and I think this is something we should also keep in mind and consider as we continue in that process. As I indicated in my presentation, it's still ongoing. We will have a first interim report at COP6 on how the effectiveness evaluation process is going, and we will only have a final report at COP7, so in a couple of years. So I think this is a timely discussion in that context, especially on the current work undertaken by the Secretariat and by the effectiveness evaluation group and the expert group on this matter. So I think it's an interesting topic, and I think it's worth understanding it more, and how can these indicators help us also understand how the convention is effective in terms of meeting its objectives, which is a difficult and complicated exercise, but which is underway, and we'll see how it will be, completed by COP7.
I see a question in a question to end mercury. You can see the question in the chat.
I can see a question. Maybe I can try to address. This is from Linda. Does the Secretariat audit the implementation of health environmental assessments? National action plans should have included a mercury exposure analysis, but new NAPs included it, and others used results from literature studies. Well, on this question, maybe I can say that national action plans have been submitted by parties in accordance with Article 7. Some parties have an obligation to submit these plans if they determine that the use of mercury in ISGM in their territory is more than insignificant. And we are now undertaking the first reviews of these NAPs will be undertaken, as the Article 7 provides that every 3 years National Action Plan should be reviewed. And we haven't yet seen any such reviews, but since some NAPs are coming to their 3rd year of life, there is an ongoing efforts also through the JEF for parties who have a NAP in place to undertake the review and then submit such review to the Secretariat. So I guess we will know more about how these NAPs are implemented, including in some aspects that may be relevant to this question when we see the first reviews. But the Secretariat itself does not undertake a systematic audit or review of the NAPs when they are submitted.
I see a question from Laurie Johnson. He's mentioning also One Health, and the question is not, I think, a question, but is a statement: to end mercury poisoning of human, Mercury Convention bodies might promote healthy lifestyles through One Health and other G20 initiatives. Healthy lifestyles reduce energy consumption, so our global neighborhoods can live without mercury poisoning. I totally agree. It's an example of coordination, and it highlights the importance to have a common approach and to use also One Health in order to implement and to reach the